welcome back to the channel for another deep dive into the scandalous, ever-evolving world of Genoa City. Today is a fantastic day to unpack some truly jaw-dropping revelations. We have a monumental twist that is about to shake the very foundations of the Newman Empire. Victor Newman, the undisputed titan of corporate ruthlessness, believed he had executed the perfect crime by framing Phyllis Summers and reclaiming his throne. He thought he had buried all the bodies and covered all his digital tracks. But he made one fatal miscalculation. He completely underestimated the relentless determination and fierce loyalty of his own granddaughter. A ghost from the Abbott servers is about to rise, and the fallout will be nothing short of apocalyptic for the mustache. The dramatic saga reignites with the highly anticipated return of Summer Newman Abbott to the turbulent streets of Genoa City. Summer arrives expecting the usual family drama, but she is immediately blindsided by the devastating news that her mother, Phyllis Summers, has completely lost control of Newman Enterprises. Initially, Summer is overwhelmed by a profound sense of disappointment. She watches her mother, usually a fiery and unstoppable force of nature, backed into a terrifying legal corner, facing the very real threat of federal prison. However, Summer is no longer the naive young woman she once was. As she processes the sheer magnitude of Phyllis's defeat, that initial disappointment rapidly morphs into a cold, calculating realization. She recognizes that Victor's heavy-handed, deceitful tactics to oust Phyllis have inadvertently exposed a critical vulnerability within the Newman Enterprises infrastructure. This realization sparks the formation of an incredibly unlikely and formidable alliance between mother and daughter. Summer makes a conscious, strategic decision to step into the line of fire and support Phyllis. What makes this dynamic so utterly fascinating is the underlying motivation. Summer is not merely rushing to her mother's rescue out of blind familial obligation or sentimental duty. Her motives are far more complex and ambitious. She is driven by fierce desire to protect her family's tarnished reputation from Victor's relentless smear campaign. Furthermore, Summer possesses a long-term, highly strategic vision. She views this crisis as the perfect opportunity to infiltrate Newman's operations, securing a powerful foothold for herself in the future. She is playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers, aligning herself with a desperate Phyllis who is hungering for redemption and a chance to rebuild her shattered empire. Armed with her own extensive network of international contacts and the razor-sharp investigative skills she honed during her complex tenure at Abbott and her time abroad, Summer launches a covert, high-stakes investigation. She refuses to accept the narrative that Victor has spun. Operating in the shadows, far away from the prying eyes of the Newman security apparatus, Summer begins to dig into the digital remnants of the corporate takeover. She knows that a crime of this unprecedented magnitude, utilizing advanced artificial intelligence to fabricate flawless, incriminating emails, leaves a digital footprint, no matter how carefully it is scrubbed. Summer transforms into a relentless corporate detective, spending grueling, sleepless nights tracing data packets, analyzing server logs, and calling in favors from her overseas tech connections. Determined to find the single loose thread that will unravel Victor's entire masterpiece of deception. The narrative reaches a heart-stopping crescendo when Summer's tireless efforts finally strike gold. While scouring through an obsolete, seemingly forgotten computer terminal hidden deep within the archives of Abbott, she accidentally uncovers a heavily encrypted, highly classified data file. Utilizing her advanced analytical skills, Summer manages to crack the encryption, and what she finds inside is nothing short of explosive. The file contains a treasure trove of suspicious, highly irregular transactions and deeply buried communications that point directly back to Victor Newman. This is not just circumstantial hearsay. This is the definitive, undeniable smoking gun that proves Victor orchestrated the entire AI framing operation. Summer stares at the glowing screen in absolute disbelief as the sheer scale of her grandfather's criminality is laid bare before her eyes. As Summer meticulously pieces the fragmented clues together, the full, horrifying picture of Victor's methodology emerges. The newly discovered evidence meticulously details exactly how Victor managed to generate the fabricated emails that brought Phyllis to her knees. It exposes a complex web of untraceable offshore bank accounts and shadowy, anonymous intermediaries who were heavily compensated to deploy the AI software. But the revelations do not stop there. The data file uncovers an even more sinister layer to Victor's scheme. He did not just forge documents. He actively engaged in massive, illegal market manipulation. The evidence proves that Victor deliberately orchestrated a financial bloodbath, artificially tanking stocks and causing severe, quantifiable financial damage to Phyllis and her investors just to corner her into submission. It is a corporate crime of epic proportions. Holding this catastrophic evidence in her hands, Summer faces an agonizing moral and familial dilemma. Exposing this file means declaring all-out war on her own grandfather, a man who has historically destroyed anyone who dares to cross him. She knows that releasing this information will trigger a shockwave that could permanently fracture the Newman family. Yet, as she thinks about her mother facing unjust imprisonment and the sheer arrogance of Victor's actions, her resolve hardens into unbreakable steel. Summer realizes that true power does not come from cowering in Victor's shadow, it comes from holding him accountable. She secures the data on multiple encrypted drives, takes a deep breath, and prepares to make the most dangerous, consequential move of her entire life. Knowing there will be no turning back once the truth is unleashed, Summer bypasses the Newman family entirely and takes her explosive findings directly to the one person who possesses the power to act on them, District Attorney Christine Blair Romalotti. The tension in Christine's office is thick enough to cut with a knife as Summer marches in, uninvited, and slaps the encrypted drive onto the prosecutor's desk. Summer confidently and methodically presents her findings, walking Christine through the offshore routing, the AI generation logs, and the undeniable proof of market manipulation. She boldly demands that Christine immediately reopen the investigation into the Newman Enterprises takeover and completely reevaluate the forced surrender agreement that Phyllis was coerced into, signing under the threat of fabricated criminal charges. For Christine, this revelation is a massive, earth-shattering shock. On one hand, her historical, deeply entrenched hatred for Phyllis Summers makes the idea of exonerating her incredibly bitter. However, Christine is, above all else, a fiercely dedicated servant of the law. As she reviews the irrefutable data presented by Summer, the horrifying realization washes over her. Victor Newman played her for an absolute fool. He weaponized her office and her personal biases to execute an illegal corporate coup. The evidence is too robust, too meticulously documented to ignore. Christine realizes that this new data is more than strong enough to completely shatter Victor's previous admissions and the false narrative he constructed. The legal foundation of her case against Phyllis evaporates, paving a clear, undeniable path for an aggressive appeal. The moment Phyllis receives the astonishing news from Summer, the atmosphere in Genoa City shifts dramatically. The manic, desperate fear that had consumed Phyllis over the past few weeks instantly vanishes, replaced by a terrifying, fiery resurgence of hope and vengeance. Phyllis realizes she has been handed the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card, courtesy of her brilliant daughter. The prospect of not only escaping federal prison, but actually reclaiming Newman Enterprises, or at the very least, seizing a massive chunk of control, ignites a dangerous spark in her eyes. She is no longer the hunted prey. She is the apex predator once again. Phyllis immediately begins drafting a ruthless, scorched-earth strategy to confront Victor, empowered by the knowledge that she now holds the weapon that can completely destroy his legacy. Meanwhile, the impending doom begins to cast a long, dark shadow over the Newman ranch. Victor Newman, who had been comfortably celebrating his triumphant return to power, is about to face a legal and public relations crisis unlike anything he has ever encountered. The revelation of his elaborate, illegal conspiracy is poised to trigger a massive wave of public outrage and intense scrutiny from federal regulators. His previously unshakable position of power at Newman Enterprises is now severely compromised. The board of directors, investors, and the business world at large will demand answers for the market manipulation and fraud. The absolute truth of his sinister plot is being dragged into the harsh light of day, threatening to dismantle his reputation and his control over the company he loves more than his own family. Honestly, looking at this entire storyline, I am absolutely captivated by the incredible evolution of Summer Newman. For years, she was often relegated to the role of a pawn in the endless wars between her parents and grandparents. Now, she has truly stepped into her own power, proving that she possesses a strategic brilliance and a ruthless edge that rivals Victor himself. It is incredibly satisfying to see her outsmart the ultimate mastermind. As for Phyllis, she is the ultimate survivor, a phoenix who constantly rises from the ashes of her own destruction. And you cannot help but root for her when she is fighting back against Victor's tyranny. And Victor, well, it is about time his monumental hubris caught up with him. His belief that he could manipulate the law, the market, and his own family without any consequences was maddening. And seeing him finally backed into a corner by his own granddaughter is poetic justice at its finest. So, what is going to happen next in this high-stakes game of corporate chess? My prediction is that Victor will not go down without a massive, dirty fight. When he realizes Summer is the one who exposed him, I believe he will try to aggressively blackmail her or offer her the CEO position at Newman Enterprises in a desperate bid to buy her silence and turn her against Phyllis. However, I think Summer will reject his toxic offer, leading to an epic, multi-generational courtroom battle that will force the entire Newman family to choose sides. The fallout will be legendary. What do you guys think Victor's next move will be? Do you think Summer and Phyllis can actually take back the company, or will Victor pull another trick out of his sleeve? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and please do not forget to like, subscribe, and share this article with your fellow Y and our fans so we can keep the conversation going.